I almost died together with my own daughter, and the entire crew in the Strait of Hormuz when giant waves crashed down as if they wanted to swallow the ship whole. But an invisible hand saved us. My name is Vincent Callahan, the notorious Mafia boss of South Boston, the man who built an entire empire from the docks and dark dealings, the man who abandoned his own flesh and blood to protect his power. I was once someone who only knew how to rule with money and guns. Then, on one fateful night, as my most luxurious ship was speeding straight into the Strait of Hormuz, I had a dream so real that it shattered my heart into pieces. That dream saved the life of my daughter, the child I had abandoned when she was still in her mother's womb, along with the entire crew from certain death. Many people ask me, is that story true? Did you really hear that voice? How did you know the storm would strike the Strait of Hormuz when the sky was still clear with no warning at all, no sign on the sea? I always answer with the same words, my voice trembling with remorse. I knew nothing. But he knew. He came to me in my sleep and warned me. He saved my daughter. He saved all of us. And when I woke up and ordered the ship to hold position in the middle of the calm Gulf, I was not relying on the experience of a battle-hardened boss. I was obeying a voice I had deliberately buried for years, the voice of the one I had never believed in. This is my true story. This is how it happened. Before I tell you about that terrifying night on the luxurious ship in the Strait of Hormuz, I need to take you back to the man I once was, the man who lost everything because he chased after power. I was born and raised in the narrow alleys of South Boston. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of kindness, especially when no one else chooses to show it. Share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Which city and country are you in, and what time is it there right now? It's always amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. Is it United States, London, maybe Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, or anywhere we want to know? And tell us what you learned at the end of this video. If moments like this remind you of the beauty of humanity, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more powerful stories that celebrate compassion, courage, and the simple acts of kindness that can change a place alive. The autumn wind cut through the narrow alleys of South Boston like a knife in October of 2025. Rain had fallen earlier that evening, leaving the sidewalks slick and the air heavy with the smell of wet asphalt and distant harbor salt. Streetlights cast long, trembling reflections on puddles, and the distant rumble of the Massachusetts Turnpike mixed with the low hum of traffic on Dorchester Avenue. In this part of the city where old triple-decker houses stood shoulder to shoulder with newer developments, life moved in sharp contrasts. Some blocks gleamed with fresh paint and luxury cars, while others remained trapped in quiet decay. Vincent Callahan, known to those who mattered as Vinny, stood at the window of his private study on the top floor of a converted warehouse overlooking the waterfront. At 48 years old, he was a tall, fair-skinned man of Irish-American descent, born and raised right here in South Boston. His face carried the hard lines of a life spent navigating power. Strong jaw, steel blue eyes that missed nothing, and silver threading through his dark hair. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than most people in his old neighborhood earned in a month. On his wrist gleamed a heavy platinum watch, and behind him the room spoke of wealth accumulated through years of calculated risk. Dark oak paneling, a massive mahogany desk imported from Italy, leather armchairs, and a glass cabinet displaying rare whiskey bottles, and a few carefully chosen mementos. Yet inside Vinnie Callahan, a storm raged that no amount of money could calm. He stared out at the glittering lights of the harbor where his legitimate shipping companies mixed with other less visible operations. Success had come at a steep price. He commanded respect across the East Coast, controlling key port interests, protection networks, and discreet international dealings that brought in millions. Rivals feared him. Associates obeyed him without question. But every night when the city quieted, the same gnawing guilt returned, a consuming remorse that clawed at his chest like an old wound that refused to heal. He reached into the pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a worn Boston Red Sox cap, faded from years of handling. It had belonged to his own father, lost to street violence when Vinny was only 12. He turned the cap over in his hands, fingers tracing the frayed brim. "You always said power was the only way to survive," he whispered to the empty room. The words brought a fresh wave of inner conflict. Vinny had built an empire to protect himself and those he claimed as his own. Yet the deeper he climbed, the more he felt the emptiness inside. Was this the life his father would have wanted? The question tore at him violently, leaving him breathless in the stillness of the luxurious room. Down in the streets below, far from the warmth and safety of Vinny's world, a young woman named Sarah Thompson endured a different kind of storm. Sarah was 32, slender and worn thin by years of hardship. Her face, once bright with youthful hope, now carried hollow cheeks and dark circles under exhausted eyes. She huddled with her 8-year-old daughter Lily in the doorway of an abandoned storefront near Andrew Square, where the wind whipped through cracked windows and carried the chill straight to their bones. They had no home. The latest eviction had come without mercy. A landlord who cared only for rising rents in a city that had grown unforgiving to the poor. Sarah's thin coat offered little protection against the October cold. Her hands trembled as she pulled Lily closer, trying to share what little body heat remained. Lily, small for her age and malnourished, clutched a crumpled piece of paper, a handwritten recipe card for apple pie that her mother had once copied from a church cookbook. The girl's eyes were wide with quiet fear, but she did not cry. She had learned too early that tears changed nothing. "Mama, I'm cold," she whispered, her voice soft and timid. Sarah stroked her daughter's tangled hair, fighting back her own despair. "I know, baby. Just a little longer. Mama will find us somewhere safe." Her words sounded hollow even to herself. Hunger gnawed at her stomach. Sleep had become a luxury she could rarely afford, stolen in short, anxious bursts on park benches or in shelters that often turned them away. The poverty they faced was absolute and humiliating. Earlier that day, Sarah had stood in line at a food pantry only to be told supplies had run out. She had walked the streets afterward with Lily in tow, searching for day labor that paid cash, but most opportunities went to those who looked stronger, healthier. Passersby glanced away, unwilling to see the depth of their misery. Sarah felt the weight of every unfair blow, the broken social services, the endless paperwork that led nowhere, the landlords who raised rents faster than any minimum wage job could keep up. Each rejection stripped another layer from her dignity, leaving her desperate, powerless, and filled with a fierce inner torment that made her chest ache. As night deepened, trouble found them. A group of men from a rival street faction, young enforcers testing boundaries in territory that bordered Vinny's influence, approached the doorway. Their voices were loud and mocking. One of them kicked at the cardboard Sarah had laid down as a makeshift bed. "This ain't your spot, lady. Move along before things get ugly." Sarah pulled Lily behind her, her heart pounding with horror and anxiety. She kept her voice soft and polite, though fear made it shake. "Please, sir, we have nowhere else. Just for tonight." The men laughed. One stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. Sarah felt dizziness wash over her, a numbing confusion mixed with sharp pain in her chest from days without proper food or rest. Lily trembled against her mother's leg, eyes wide with shock. From a black SUV parked across the street, Vincent Callahan watched the scene unfold. He had come down personally to handle a minor dispute, with a rival crew encroaching on his dock interests. His driver and 2 trusted men waited nearby, tense but silent. Vinny's blue eyes narrowed as he took in the woman and child. Something about the small girl's posture, the way she tried to shield her mother despite her own fear, struck him like a physical blow. A surge of emotion hit him with overwhelming force. It was not mere pity. From the very first moment, an intense, passionate love flooded his heart. The fierce, protective love of a father who recognizes his own blood and failure in the same instant. He knew with sudden, disorienting clarity that this was the child he had walked away from years ago, when Sarah had told him she was pregnant. The guilt that had gnawed at him for so long now roared to life, violent and consuming, his hands clenched into fists. How could he have let this happen? The remorse tore through him, mixing with a deep emotional conflict that left him momentarily numb. He who commanded wealth beyond imagination, multiple waterfront properties, fleets of luxury vehicles, offshore accounts that ensured his power, had allowed his own flesh and blood to suffer in absolute poverty. The contrast was brutal. While he dined on fine meals and slept in silk sheets, this woman and child had endured cold, wind-filled nights, thin and sleep-deprived, their bodies weakened by malnutrition. The injustice of it burned in his chest. Without a word, Vinny stepped out of the SUV. His presence alone shifted the air. The rival men recognized him immediately and backed away, muttering excuses. Vinny's voice was calm but carried unmistakable authority. "This ends now. They are under my protection." The men disappeared into the shadows, unwilling to challenge him directly. Sarah looked up, confusion and fear flashing across her face. She felt a wave of dizziness and loss of balance, clutching the doorway for support. Who was this powerful man? Why would he intervene? Her mind spun with shock and intense curiosity mixed with guarded suspicion. Vinny approached slowly, his tall frame casting a protective shadow. He removed his expensive overcoat and draped it gently around Sarah and Lily. The fabric was warm, soft, and smelled faintly of cedar and cologne, a world away from the damp chill they had known. Lily peeked out her eyes, meeting his. In that quiet, condensed moment of stillness, Vinny felt his heart crack open. The little girl's timid voice broke the silence. "Are you going to hurt us, mister?" The question pierced him deeper than any rival's threat ever had. He knelt to her level, his powerful frame humbled. "No, sweetheart. I'm here to help. You're safe now." Sarah watched in stunned silence, her emotions a violent whirlwind horror at their vulnerability, anxiety about trusting a stranger, and a confusing surge of something like fragile hope. She felt numb, disoriented, as if the ground had shifted beneath her. This man, clearly wealthy and commanding, stood before her, offering protection she had never known. The inner turmoil grew intense. Part of her wanted to flee, fearing hidden motives. Another part, exhausted and desperate, ached to believe in the unexpected kindness. Vinny's own conflict raged fiercer. Guilt consumed him as he looked at Lily, his daughter. Though she did not yet know it, the remorse was almost unbearable, a deep emotional response that made his chest tighten. He had built walls of power to survive, yet here was living proof of how those walls had failed. The one person who should have mattered most. His love for the child surged passionately from that first moment, raw and protective, demanding he take responsibility. No longer could he hide from the fatherly bond calling to him. He helped them into the SUV with careful gentleness, shielding Lily from the wind. As the vehicle pulled away from the bleak street, Vinny glanced back at the abandoned doorway. The unfairness of it all, the absurd cruelties that had befallen Sarah and Lily while he lived in luxury, fueled a quiet but burning resolve. Multiple scenes like this had played out in his city rivals, pushing into his territory, forcing vulnerable people into the margins. Tonight, one of those confrontations had led him straight to the child he never knew he had lost. Inside the warm vehicle, Lily clutched the Red Sox cap Vinny had placed on her head for comfort. Sarah sat guarded, her soft voice murmuring polite thanks, though her eyes betrayed deep disorientation and lingering fear. Vinny sat opposite them, his powerful presence filling the space. Yet his heart was in turmoil, gnawing guilt, consuming remorse, and a fierce determination to protect what was his. The road ahead would be long, filled with more conflicts and inner storms, but in this moment, the hardened Mafia boss felt something new, awakening the responsibility and compassion of a father who had finally found his child in the depths of poverty. The city lights blurred past the windows as the SUV carried them toward safety. For Sarah and Lily, the night had shifted from despair to uncertainty. For Vincent Callahan, it marked the beginning of a profound emotional journey, one that would test every wall he had built and force him to confront the man he had become. The inner conflicts only grew stronger as the vehicle moved deeper into the night, setting the stage for storms far greater than any October wind in South Boston. The black SUV glided smoothly through the rain-slicked streets of South Boston, its powerful engine a low, steady hum that contrasted sharply with the chaotic world outside. October of 2025 had brought an early bite to the air, and the city lights reflected in countless puddles like scattered diamonds. Inside the warm vehicle, silence hung heavy, broken only by the soft rhythm of windshield wipers and the occasional distant siren. Vincent Callahan sat across from Sarah Thompson and her daughter Lily, his tall frame filling the leather seat with quiet authority. His fair-skinned face remained composed, yet beneath the surface a violent storm of emotions raged with increasing intensity. Vinny's steel-blue eyes kept returning to Lily, the 8-year-old girl who now wore his old Boston Red Sox cap. The faded fabric looked absurdly large on her small head, yet she clutched the brim with both thin hands as if it were a lifeline. Every glance at her sent fresh waves of gnawing remorse tearing through his chest. This was his daughter, the child he had abandoned nearly 9 years earlier, when Sarah had come to him, frightened and pregnant, begging him to stay. At the time, Vinny had been climbing the ranks of the organization with ruthless focus. Fatherhood, he had told himself, would make him weak, a target for rivals. So he had walked away, leaving Sarah with nothing but empty promises and a handful of cash that lasted only weeks. The memory now burned like acid in his soul. How could he have been so cruel? The inner conflict was violent, ripping at his heart with every breath. He who commanded fleets of vehicles, multiple waterfront properties, and offshore accounts worth tens of millions of dollars, had left his own blood to suffer in the coldest, most humiliating poverty. Sarah sat beside Lily, her thin frame swallowed by Vinny's heavy overcoat. At 32 years old, she looked far older from years of hardship. Her cheeks were hollow, her once bright eyes dulled by constant exhaustion. Malnutrition had left her painfully slender, her wrists fragile as twigs. She had endured countless cold, wind-filled nights on park benches or in doorways clutching Lily while the October gusts cut through their thin clothing. Sleep came in fitful, anxious bursts, often interrupted by the fear of being moved along by police or rival street groups. The poverty was absolute and deeply pitiful. Earlier that same week, Sarah had been denied emergency housing assistance due to a paperwork error, an absurdly unfair bureaucratic wall that left them on the streets once more. She had stood in the rain outside the social services office, holding Lily's hand, feeling the eyes of passers-by slide away in discomfort. Humiliation burned in her chest as she realized again how invisible the poor could become in a city of gleaming towers and luxury condos. Now, inside the luxurious SUV with heated seats and soft lighting, Sarah felt a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. At moments, she was desperate and powerless, her body still trembling from the cold and hunger. Then confusion and fear would surge. Who was this powerful man who had appeared like a shadow and claimed them? Guarded suspicion made her voice soft and timid when she finally spoke. "Thank you, sir, for the coat. It is very kind of you." Her words were polite, appropriate for addressing someone older and clearly of higher status, yet they carried an undercurrent of anxiety. She clutched Lily closer, her heart pounding with horror at the thought of what might happen next. Dizziness washed over her, a numbing disorientation that made the world tilt slightly. Pain throbbed in her temples from days without proper food or rest. Yet beneath the fear, an intense curiosity flickered. Why had he helped them? And why did he look at Lily with such raw, unspoken pain? Vinny felt the overwhelming surge of fatherly love hit him again, passionate and burning from the very first moment he had recognized them on the street. It was not romantic. It was the fierce, protective devotion of a father who had failed and now desperately needed to make amends. The emotion was so intense it left him numb for long stretches of quiet stillness inside the vehicle. In those condensed moments, he studied Sarah's exhausted face and Lily's fragile form, and the remorse grew violently stronger. He remembered the night Sarah had told him about the pregnancy. She had been hopeful then, her voice soft with dreams of a family. He had turned away, citing the dangers of his rising position in the organization. "This life is no place for a child," he had said coldly. The lie still haunted him, now seeing the extreme disparity his wealth displayed in the supple leather, the quiet luxury of the SUV, the platinum watch on his wrist against their utter misery. The inner tearing became almost unbearable. Guilt consumed him like a fire. How many nights had they shivered while he slept in silk sheets? How many meals had they missed while his table overflowed with the finest food? The SUV turned onto a wider avenue heading toward Vinny's secure compound on the Braiding the Ford waterfront. But trouble was never far in his world. Suddenly, two black sedans pulled alongside their windows, tinted dark. Vinny's driver tensed. "Boss, it looks like the Harlan crew. They've been pushing into our territory near the docks." Vinny's jaw tightened. The Harlan faction, a rival group growing bolder in recent months, had been testing boundaries with small encroachments. This was no coincidence. Word of Vinny's personal movements traveled fast on the streets. The confrontation escalated quickly but without excessive violence. One sedan cut in front, forcing the SUV to slow. A window rolled down and a harsh voice called out, "Callahan, you think you own these streets? We got business to discuss." Vinny lowered his own window slightly, his powerful presence radiating calm authority. "Not tonight. Stand down." The rival men glared, but something in Vinny's steady gaze and the visible security detail made them hesitate. After a tense, breathless minute of stare-down, the sedans peeled away into the night. Vinny exhaled slowly, but inside the conflict raged fiercer. Every challenge from rivals reminded him of the life he had chosen, the same life that had caused him to abandon Sarah and Lily. The remorse tore at him violently, mixing with a deep determination to protect them now. Sarah had watched the encounter with wide eyes, her body rigid with fear. Horror and anxiety flooded her. She felt a fresh wave of dizziness and loss of balance even while seated. Her voice came out timid and polite when she finally spoke again. Is everything all right, sir? I do not want to bring trouble." The question revealed her guarded psychology. A woman once desperately poor, now suddenly under the protection of a wealthy, powerful man, yet terrified it might all vanish. The inner turmoil was confusing and numbing. Part of her wanted to trust the warmth of the coat and the safety of the vehicle. Another part screamed that powerful men always demanded something in return. The emotional shock left her chest tight, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes, as she thought of all the unjust situations that had stripped her dignity. The eviction notices, the empty food pantries, the nights when Lily had cried from hunger, while Sarah could offer only whispered lullabies. Lily, sensing her mother's distress, looked up at Vinny with curious, innocent eyes. "You stopped the bad men," she said softly. The simple words hit Vinny like a physical blow. In that quiet moment of emotional stillness, his heart cracked wider. The fatherly love surged with passionate intensity. This small, malnourished child, his own daughter, had already shown more courage than many grown men in his organization. The remorse became consuming. He imagined all the birthdays he had missed, all the cold nights they had endured while he attended lavish meetings in penthouse suites. The disparity felt absurdly unfair, violently tearing at his inner world. He wanted to tell them everything right then, but the words lodged in his throat. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the faded family locket. He always carried a small gold piece containing an old photograph of his own mother. He handed it to Lily gently. "This is for you, sweetheart. Something to hold on to when things feel scary." Sarah watched the exchange, her emotions a whirlwind of shock and deepening attachment. Suspicion still lingered, but it was slowly giving way to an overwhelming trust. The kindness in Vinny's eyes felt genuine, burning away some of the fear. Yet the psychological conflict remained intense. She, who had been powerless for so long now, sat in unimaginable comfort. The warmth of the SUV, the soft lighting, the quiet luxury it all highlighted the humiliating poverty she had known. Sleep-deprived and thin, she felt a strange numbness mixed with curious wonder. Could this powerful man truly want nothing in return? The question tormented her, creating quiet moments of condensed stillness where she simply held Lily and breathed in the unfamiliar safety. As the SUV approached the gated entrance to Vinny's waterfront compound, more of his wealth came into view. The property stretched along the harbor with private docks, multiple luxury vehicles parked in a secured lot, and a large main house glowing with warm lights. Security personnel nodded respectfully as the gates opened. Inside the compound, the contrast became even starker. While Sarah and Lily had survived on scraps and the charity of strangers, Vinny lived surrounded by comfort and power, fine furnishings, a private gym, and offices from which he directed operations worth millions. Vinny helped them inside the house with careful gentleness, showing them to a guest suite with soft beds, warm blankets, and a connected bathroom stocked with fresh towels and toiletries. Lily's eyes widened in quiet awe as she touched the clean sheets. Sarah stood in the doorway, her voice soft and timid once more. "This is too much, sir. We do not want to be a burden." Her words carried deep politeness, but her eyes revealed the inner tearing fear that this dream might shatter, mixed with a burning hope that it would not. Vinny paused in the hallway, his powerful frame silhouetted against the light. The gnawing remorse returned with violent force as he looked at them. Every luxury in the house mocked the years of their suffering. The inner conflict grew fiercer with each passing minute. He had built this empire to survive, yet it had cost him the chance to be the father Lily deserved. The passionate fatherly love he felt from the first moment now demanded action, protection, responsibility, and healing. He could not undo the past, but he could change the future. In the quiet of the guest room later that night, as Lily finally slept soundly for the first time in weeks, Sarah sat by the window overlooking the harbor. Tears slipped down her cheeks in the condensed stillness. The absurdity of their situation tore at her from the coldest streets to this unexpected sanctuary. Her heart was in turmoil, confusion, and attachment, battling with lingering guardedness. Yet deep down, a fragile trust was taking root. For Vinny, alone in his study once more, the emotional upheaval was even more intense. He gripped the edge of his desk, staring at the city lights. The remorse was consuming the guilt, violent in its intensity. He had abandoned them once. He would not do so again. The father-child bond, though still unspoken, was already awakening something profound within him. A call to compassion and responsibility that no amount of power or wealth could silence. The night deepened over South Boston, but for 3 lost souls, the first fragile threads of healing had begun to form amid the storm of their inner worlds. The first light of dawn filtered through heavy curtains in the waterfront compound, casting a soft golden glow across the polished hardwood floors of the guest suite. October of 2025 continued to bring crisp mornings to South Boston, with the harbor outside sparkling under a pale sky. Inside the spacious room, the contrast between safety and remembered hardship felt almost dreamlike. Sarah Thompson lay awake on the edge of the large bed. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every moment of the previous night in a whirlwind of confusion and lingering fear. Lily slept soundly beside her for the first time in many weeks, the old Boston Red Sox cap resting on the pillow next to her small hand. Sarah's frame remained painfully slender, her cheeks hollow from long months of malnutrition. She had endured so many cold, wind-filled nights, huddled in doorways or under bridges, clutching Lily, while the October gusts stole what little warmth they had. Sleep had become a rare mercy, interrupted by the constant anxiety of being discovered and moved along. The poverty they had known was not just difficult, it was deeply humiliating and pitiful. Only days earlier, an absurdly unfair eviction had left them with nothing but the clothes on their backs after a landlord ignored their pleas and changed the locks without notice. Sarah had stood on the sidewalk in the rain, holding Lily's hand, watching their few belongings tossed into a pile as neighbors looked away in discomfort. Food pantries had turned them away twice that week, due to overwhelming demand and strict rules leaving them hungry and powerless. The injustice tore at her soul, creating violent inner torment that left her chest tight with unspoken sobs. Now, surrounded by unimaginable luxury thick carpets, fresh flowers on the nightstand, and a private bathroom with soft towels and warm water, Sarah felt a deep disorientation. Dizziness washed over her as she sat up, a numbing confusion that made the room seem to tilt. Pain throbbed in her temples from days of exhaustion. At moments she was desperate and powerless, her body still weak from hunger. Then fear and guarded suspicion would surge. Who was this powerful man who had taken them in? What did he truly want? Her voice, when she finally spoke to the quiet room, remained soft and timid, appropriate for someone who had spent years addressing those with more power. Yet beneath the politeness lay intense curiosity mixed with anxiety. Could this safety be real, or would it vanish like so many false hopes before? A gentle knock sounded at the door. Sarah's heart jumped. She stood quickly, steadying herself against a wave of lightheadedness and loss of balance. "Come in," she called, her tone polite and guarded. Vincent Callahan entered, carrying a tray with warm breakfast, fresh fruit oatmeal, toast, and milk. His tall, fair-skinned frame filled the doorway with quiet authority. He wore a crisp button-down shirt and slacks, the simple elegance, speaking of wealth far beyond anything Sarah had ever known. His steel-blue eyes softened as they rested on Lily, still sleeping peacefully. From the very first moment he had recognized them on the street, an overwhelming fatherly love had burned inside him, passionate, intense, and protective. It was not romantic. It was the deep, consuming devotion of a father who had failed his child, and now felt every second of that failure like a knife in his heart. Vinny set the tray down carefully, his movements deliberate and gentle. "Good morning," he said quietly, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of emotion. Inside, the gnawing remorse grew more violent with every passing hour. Seeing Lily safe in a clean bed, her small face finally relaxed, only highlighted the years of suffering he had allowed. He remembered the night he had walked away from Sarah's plea. The guilt tore at him fiercely, a consuming inner conflict that left him numb in quiet moments. He had built an empire of waterfront properties, luxury vehicles, and powerful connections worth tens of millions of dollars, yet his own daughter had known only cold streets and empty stomachs. The disparity felt absurdly unfair, violently ripping apart his inner world. How many times had he sat in expensive meetings while they shivered outside? The remorse was so intense it made his hands tremble slightly as he adjusted the tray. Lily stirred and opened her eyes. She sat up slowly, looking at the food with wide, curious eyes. "Is this for us?" she asked in a small voice. Sarah nodded, helping her daughter sit properly. "Yes, baby. Eat slowly." Her own stomach ached with hunger, but she waited, watching Vinny with a mix of fear and heightened curiosity. The luxurious surroundings, the soft lighting, the smell of fresh coffee from the tray, the quiet security of the compound emphasized the extreme gap between their past misery and this sudden protection. She felt shock and confusion, a numbing disorientation that made her question everything. Someone once desperately poor did not simply wake up in a safe, warm house cared for by a wealthy, powerful man. The emotional upheaval was confusing and tearing, creating quiet moments of condensed stillness where she simply held Lily's hand and breathed. Vinny knelt beside the bed so he was closer to Lily's level. "This is all for you and your mother," he said gently. "You are safe here. No one will make you leave." The fatherly love surged again with burning intensity. Looking at Lily's thin arms and tired eyes, he felt extreme psychological shock. The realization that this vulnerable child was his own flesh and blood, abandoned by his choices. The inner tearing grew fiercer. Remorse consumed him like a fire, mixing with a fierce determination to protect her now. He wanted to tell them the truth immediately, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he focused on small acts of care, pouring milk for Lily and offering Sarah a warm cup of tea. In those quiet moments of emotional stillness, the bond began to deepen without words. Later that morning after breakfast, Vinny took them on a gentle tour of the compound to help them feel more at ease. The property revealed more of his wealth with increasing intensity: a private garden overlooking the harbor, a spacious kitchen stocked with food, and secure gates manned by trusted men. Sarah walked slowly, still feeling occasional dizziness and pain from her weakened state. She remained guarded, her voice soft and polite when she spoke. "This place is very beautiful, sir. Thank you for letting us stay." Yet inside, anxiety and fear battled with growing attachment. The absurdity of their situation tore at her, from sleeping in doorways to walking through rooms filled with comfort. Unreasonable and unjust events from her past flashed in her mind: the time a shelter had turned them away because they were one day late with paperwork, or the night Lily had developed a fever on the streets with no medicine available. Each memory evoked deep sympathy for her plight, highlighting her utter misery and inner torment. As they moved through the garden, trouble intruded once more in an unexpected street confrontation just beyond the compound walls. Vinny's phone buzzed with an urgent message from his security team. A small group from the Harlan faction had been spotted lingering near the perimeter, testing boundaries again. Vinny excused himself briefly and stepped outside with 2 of his men. The confrontation unfolded tensely on the adjacent street. The rivals, emboldened by recent gains in dock territory, demanded a meeting. Voices rose in bold exchanges, but Vinny's calm authority and visible presence kept the situation from escalating into violence. "This area is off limits," he stated firmly. The rivals backed down after a heated but controlled standoff, their vehicles pulling away with frustrated glares. Vinny returned inside, his jaw tight. The encounter only intensified his inner conflict. Every challenge from opposing factions reminded him of the dangerous life that had caused him to abandon Sarah and Lily. The remorse became violently consuming, tearing at his heart with fresh force. He had chosen power to survive, yet that same power had left his child in poverty. Sarah had watched from a window, her heart pounding with horror and anxiety. She felt a wave of numbness and loss of balance, clutching the windowsill for support. The sight of Vinny handling the situation with such control left her in shock and deep disorientation. Why would a man of such wealth and influence risk trouble for them? The emotional drama escalated inside her confusion, mixing with an overwhelming surge of trust and attachment. From initial suspicion, a passionate, burning gratitude was growing. She, who had been powerless for so long now, felt protected in a way she had never known. The mindset of someone suddenly lifted from extreme poverty created extreme psychological shock. Tears welled in her eyes during a quiet moment of condensed stillness as she held Lily close. "He seems kind," she whispered to her daughter, her voice timid yet filled with tentative hope. Vinny rejoined them in the living area, where Lily had found a drawing pad and crayons left for her. The little girl sketched a simple picture of a house with 3 figures standing together. She showed it to Vinny shyly. "This is us," she said softly. The innocent gesture struck Vinny like a physical blow. His fatherly love burned even stronger, passionate and intense. In that condensed emotional stillness, he felt the violent inner conflict reach new heights. Guilt over the secret past clawed at him, the years he had missed, the cold nights they had endured while he lived in luxury. The disparity was heartbreaking, his wealth displayed in every detail of the compound, versus their thin, malnourished bodies still recovering from hardship. He knelt again, accepting the drawing with trembling hands. "It is beautiful, Lily. I will keep it safe." Sarah observed the interaction, her emotions a turbulent sea. Fear still lingered, but it was slowly giving way to deeper attachment. The inner tearing was confusing and numbing. Part of her remained guarded, terrified this kindness might hide a price. Another part felt an overwhelming surge of trust moved by Vinny's gentle way with Lily. The psychological shock of sudden protection left her dizzy with conflicting feelings. Unjust situations from her past replayed in her mind, each one more pitiful and humiliating than the last, drawing quiet tears as she remembered nights when Lily had asked why they could not have a real home. Throughout the day, Vinny arranged for a doctor to check on both Sarah and Lily discreetly, ensuring they received proper nutrition and care. He also quietly ordered new clothes and essentials, all delivered without fanfare. Each act of kindness intensified the emotional rhythm. For Vinny, the remorse grew more violent, a deep emotional upheaval centered on his love for the child. For Sarah, suspicion melted further into trust, though moments of anxiety and disorientation still came in waves. Lily, innocent and resilient, became the bridge, her small smiles and curious questions creating quiet highlights of hope amid the inner storms. As evening fell over the compound, the 3 of them shared a simple dinner at the large table. In the warm light, Vinny felt the father-child bond strengthening with every passing hour. The secret past weighed heavily, but so did the fierce resolve to protect and heal. Sarah sat across from him, her soft voice offering polite thanks once more. Yet her eyes revealed a growing attachment that touched his tormented heart. The night settled quietly over South Boston, but inside the waterfront home the emotional journey had only deepened. The inner conflicts continued to tear at each of them, remorse and guilt for Vinny, confusion and emerging trust for Sarah, innocent curiosity for Lily. Yet in the midst of it all, the first genuine threads of family were beginning to form, fragile but real in the shelter of unexpected compassion and powerful protection. The afternoon light in the waterfront compound softened as October of 2025 brought scattered clouds over South Boston Harbor. Inside the spacious living area, the air carried the faint scent of fresh coffee and warm bread from the kitchen. Vincent Callahan stood by the tall windows overlooking the water, his tall, fair-skinned frame silhouetted against the gray sky. His steel blue eyes reflected a deep inner turmoil that grew more violent with every passing hour. The luxurious surroundings, polished marble floors, heavy velvet drapes, and fine leather furniture, spoke of his immense wealth and power. He controlled key dock operations, multiple properties along the waterfront, and networks that generated millions of dollars in legitimate and discreet business. Yet none of it eased the gnawing remorse that clawed at his heart. Every time he looked at Lily, the 8-year-old girl drawing quietly at the large oak table, the fatherly love surged with passionate, burning intensity. This was his daughter, the child he had abandoned in a moment of selfish fear. The violent conflict inside him tore deeper. How could a man who commanded such power have allowed his own blood to suffer in absolute poverty? Sarah Thompson sat nearby on a soft couch, still wrapped in the warmth of Vinny's oversized coat even though the house was perfectly heated. At 32, she remained painfully thin and malnourished, her face marked by dark circles from years of sleep deprivation. She had endured countless cold, wind-filled nights huddled with Lily in alleyways, or under bridges, her thin clothes offering no protection against the biting October gusts. The poverty had been deeply humiliating and pitiful. Only weeks earlier, an absurdly unfair situation had unfolded when a shelter had turned them away because their names were misspelled on a waiting list. Sarah had stood in the pouring rain holding Lily's trembling hand, watching other families enter while they were left on the street once more. Hunger had become a constant companion, leaving her body weak, and her spirit worn down to the edge of despair. She felt desperate and powerless in those memories, her voice often reduced to soft, timid whispers when asking strangers for help. Now, in this world of sudden safety and luxury, Sarah experienced waves of confusion, fear, and guarded curiosity. She watched Vinny with cautious eyes, her voice remaining polite and soft whenever she addressed him. "Mr. Callahan, thank you again for the clothes and the food. We are not used to such kindness." Her words carried the psychology of someone who had known only hardship, speaking to an older, more powerful man with careful respect. Yet inside, horror and anxiety flickered. Dizziness and a strange numbness sometimes washed over her when she thought too long about their changed circumstances. The extreme disparity his wealth displayed in every detail of the compound, versus their previous nights of cold wind and empty stomachs, created deep disorientation and pain in her chest. From initial suspicion, an overwhelming trust and attachment was beginning to burn passionate and intense. Someone once desperately poor did not easily accept protection from a wealthy, powerful man without fearing hidden costs. The emotional upheaval left her inner world violently torn confusion, numbing her thoughts, while a fragile hope made her heart ache with tentative attachment. Lily looked up from her, drawing her small face brighter after a full night's sleep and proper meals. She had gained a touch of color in her cheeks, though she remained fragile and thin. "Mama, can I go outside to the garden?" she asked in her soft voice. Sarah smiled weakly, nodding. Vinny offered gently, "I will walk with her if that is all right." Sarah hesitated, fear flashing across her face, but the growing trust won. "Yes, thank you, sir." As Vinny and Lily stepped into the private garden, a sudden commotion erupted near the compound gates. One of Vinny's security men approached quickly. "Boss, we have a situation. A boy slipped past the outer perimeter. Says he knows the little girl." Vinny's jaw tightened. Rival factions had been testing his boundaries more boldly in recent days, and unexpected intrusions raised immediate tension. He instructed his men to bring the boy in carefully without force. Moments later, a scrappy 9-year-old boy named Tommy stood in the entryway, his clothes dirty and torn, his face set in a mixture of defiance and worry. Tommy was Lily's loyal best friend from the old neighborhood, a street-smart child who had shared many cold nights with her, scavenging for food and watching out for danger. He had followed them after hearing rumors on the street about a powerful man taking Lily and her mother away. His eyes narrowed when he saw Vinny. "Where's Lily? I'm not leaving without her. Powerful men like you only hurt kids like us." Lily ran forward with a small cry of joy. "Tommy!" She hugged him tightly, the two children clinging to each other in a quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness. Sarah watched from the doorway, her heart pounding with fresh anxiety and shock. The sight of Tommy, thin, malnourished, and clearly sleep-deprived from his own nights on the streets, brought back all the humiliating poverty they had escaped. She felt a wave of dizziness and loss of balance, steadying herself against the wall. The inner tearing intensified. How many times had Tommy shared his last piece of bread with Lily while they endured wind and rain together? The unjust situations they had faced, being chased from parks by security guards, denied school meals due to paperwork issues, or left shivering when shelters closed early, flooded her mind, evoking deep sympathy and quiet tears. Vinny felt the scene like a physical blow to his already tormented heart. Seeing Tommy's distrustful glare directed at him intensified the gnawing remorse and violent inner conflict. This boy represented everything Vinny had once ignored: the vulnerable children of the streets who suffered while he built his empire. The fatherly love for Lily burned even stronger, passionate and protective, now extending in responsibility toward her friend. Yet the guilt tore at him fiercely. He had the power to change lives with a single word, yet he had failed his own daughter for years. The emotional upheaval was consuming, leaving him numb in the quiet garden air as he watched the children together. Tommy pulled back from the hug and looked up at Vinny with bold suspicion. "You're one of those rich guys who run everything around here, aren't you? I've seen your kind before. You take what you want and leave kids like us with nothing. Lily, don't trust him. He'll send you back to the streets when he gets tired of you." His words were sharp, born from years of witnessing unfair treatment and broken promises. Lily shook her head, her voice soft but firm. "He gave us food and a warm bed, Tommy." He stopped the bad men. The tension rose as Tommy refused to back down, creating escalating drama inside the compound. Vinny's men stood alert nearby, but Vinny raised a hand to keep the situation calm. He knelt to Tommy's level, his powerful presence tempered with gentleness. "You are right to be careful, son. The streets teach hard lessons, but Lily and her mother are safe here. You can stay too if you want. No one will force you to leave." Tommy crossed his arms, distrust still burning in his eyes, but a flicker of curiosity appeared. The boy's own history of poverty, sleeping in abandoned cars during cold nights, going days without proper meals, made him guarded and fearful. Sarah approached slowly, her voice timid and polite. "Tommy has been like a brother to Lily. Please, if he can stay, it would mean everything." Her words carried deep emotional weight. Inside, the inner conflict grew more violent. She felt horror at the thought of Tommy returning alone to the streets, mixed with anxiety about bringing more burden to Vinny. The disparity between their past misery and this luxurious home created extreme psychological shock. She, who had once been powerless and desperate, now stood in a world of wealth, while her daughter's best friend embodied the life they had barely escaped. The attachment to Vinny's protection burned stronger, yet suspicion and fear still tugged violently at her heart, leaving her numb and disoriented in waves. Later that afternoon, another tense confrontation unfolded unexpectedly on the street just outside the compound. A black sedan from the Harlan faction slowed near the gates, the occupants making bold gestures and calling out challenges about territory. Vinny stepped outside with two of his men, his authority radiating calm control. The rivals demanded a meeting about Doc, access their voices loud but careful not to cross into open aggression. Vinny responded firmly. "This property and everyone inside it are under my protection. Move on." The sedan lingered for several long, breathless minutes before pulling away, the tension thick in the October air. Vinny returned inside, his jaw set. Each conflict with opposing factions reminded him of the dangerous world that had cost him his chance at fatherhood. The remorse became fiercer, violently tearing at his inner world. He had chosen this life of power, and it had left Lily and children like Tommy to suffer absurdly unfair hardships. In the quiet of the evening, the four of them gathered in the living area. Lily and Tommy sat close together, drawing pictures and whispering. Tommy remained wary of Vinny, issuing occasional warnings to Lily in hushed tones. "Don't get too comfortable. Men like him always have a reason." Lily defended Vinny softly, creating small moments of rising tension between the children. Sarah watched with a mix of fear and deepening attachment. She felt shock and confusion at how quickly their lives had changed her body, still recovering from malnutrition and exhaustion. Dizziness sometimes returned when she considered the vast wealth surrounding them, the expensive furnishings, the secure compound, the quiet luxury that highlighted their previous pitiful nights of cold wind and hunger. Vinny sat in a large armchair, observing the scene in condensed emotional stillness. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate intensity, now complicated by the responsibility he felt toward Tommy. The inner tearing reached new heights. Guilt over his secret past consumed him as he imagined all the nights Lily and Tommy had spent cold and afraid while he lived in comfort. The remorse was violent and deep, mixing with a fierce resolve to prove himself worthy of their trust. He wanted to reveal the truth about being Lily's father, but the timing felt fragile amid the rising tensions. Sarah caught Vinny's eye across the room and offered a small, polite smile. "Thank you for letting Tommy stay. He has suffered as much as we have." Her voice was soft, carrying the weight of someone who had known only powerlessness. In that quiet moment, the attachment grew stronger, pushing back against the lingering fear and guardedness. Yet the emotional drama continued to escalate inside her, numbing confusion about trusting a powerful man, mixed with burning gratitude that brought tears to her eyes when she thought of the unjust situations they had survived. As night fell over the harbor, the compound lights glowed warmly against the darkness. The loyal best friend had brought new tension and deeper layers to the unfolding story. Tommy's distrust created bold, unexpected friction, while Lily's innocent faith in Vinny highlighted the fragile hope taking root. For Vinny, the inner conflict raged more intensely than ever, remorse tearing at him, fatherly love demanding he protect and heal. For Sarah, the journey from suspicion toward overwhelming trust continued passionate and intense, even as anxiety and disorientation lingered. The disparity between their past poverty and present safety remained stark, evoking sympathy and quiet tears for the many absurdly unfair events that had shaped their lives. In the stillness of the house, the emotional rhythm deepened. The father-child bond, though still partly hidden, grew stronger amid the rising tensions, setting the stage for greater storms ahead in the days to come. The October sun dipped low over South Boston Harbor in 2025, painting the water in shades of amber and gold, as the luxury yacht prepared for departure from Vinny's private dock. The vessel, a sleek 80-meter masterpiece of modern engineering, gleamed under the fading light. Its interiors blended opulent comfort with seafaring practicality. Spacious salons with white and gray sofas, handcrafted mahogany paneling, marble accents, large panoramic windows that flooded the rooms with natural light, and state-of-the-art entertainment systems discreetly integrated into the elegant design. Soft lighting, climate-controlled cabins, and plush accommodations created an atmosphere of effortless luxury that stood in stark contrast to the world Sarah and Lily had known. Vincent Callahan stood on the main deck, his tall, fair-skinned frame commanding respect, as crew members made final preparations. At 48, the powerful Mafia boss oversaw an empire that included waterfront properties, shipping interests, and discreet international dealings worth tens of millions of dollars. Yet his steel-blue eyes carried a deepening storm of inner torment. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, intense force from the first moment he had recognized her, but the gnawing remorse had grown violently stronger in the days since Tommy's arrival. He had arranged this high-stakes voyage, a critical meeting in the Middle East, involving sensitive business negotiations, believing the luxury yacht offered the safest and most discreet transport. What he had not anticipated was the children's determination to stay close. Sarah Thompson moved cautiously through the main salon, her thin, malnourished frame still adjusting to the gentle sway of the vessel. She remained painfully slender, her face marked by exhaustion from years of sleep deprivation and hardship. The absolute extremity of her past poverty weighed heavily on her heart. She had endured countless cold, wind-filled nights, huddled with Lily in doorways or under bridges, her body weakened by hunger and the humiliating reality of begging for scraps. Only weeks earlier, an absurdly unfair eviction had left them with nothing after a landlord ignored their desperate pleas and changed the locks overnight. Shelters had turned them away due to bureaucratic errors, forcing them back onto the streets where Lily had shivered through feverish nights with no medicine. Those memories created deep, pitiful torment, the kind that left Sarah feeling desperate and powerless, even now, despite the yacht's luxurious surroundings. At moments, confusion and fear washed over her in waves. She spoke in a soft, timid, polite voice when addressing Vinny, appropriate for someone who had spent years navigating a world where power belonged to others. "Mr. Callahan, are you certain it is safe for Lily and Tommy to be here? We do not wish to cause any trouble on your important trip." Her words carried guarded curiosity mixed with anxiety. The vast disparity between their previous misery and this floating palace of comfort with its soft textiles, advanced insulation, that muted engine noise, and spacious cabins far larger than any shelter they had known, left her in shock and deep disorientation. Dizziness and numbness sometimes overtook her when she considered how quickly their lives had shifted. Someone once desperately poor did not easily embrace protection from a wealthy, powerful man without inner conflict tearing violently at the heart. Yet an overwhelming trust and attachment burned inside her, passionate and intense, creating quiet moments of condensed emotional stillness where she simply held Lily's hand and breathed in the unfamiliar safety. Lily and Tommy explored the yacht with wide-eyed wonder, though Tommy's expression remained wary. The 9-year-old boy stayed close to his best friend, his street-honed instincts making him distrustful of the opulence. "This is too fancy," he muttered to Lily in a hushed tone. "Powerful men like him don't take kids on fancy boats for free." "Something's wrong." Lily shook her head, her innocent voice soft. "He's helping us, Tommy. He stopped the bad men before." Their whispered exchanges added rising tension, highlighting the emotional layers among the group. Vinny had discovered the children had stowed away only after the yacht had left the dock and cleared the harbor. His men found them hiding in one of the guest cabins, drawn by loyalty and fear of being left behind in the compound. The revelation struck Vinny like a physical blow. Turning back was no longer feasible due to the tight schedule of the meeting, and the narrow waters ahead demanded full attention. He gathered them in the main salon, his powerful presence tempered with careful gentleness. "You should not have come without permission," he said quietly, though his voice lacked anger. Inside, the violent inner conflict escalated. The remorse tore at him with consuming force. He had brought danger upon the very children he desperately wanted to protect. His fatherly love for Lily surged passionately, now extended in responsibility toward Tommy. Seeing their thin frames against the backdrop of mahogany woodwork, marble details, and plush seating only intensified the guilt. While he commanded such wealth, they had known only cold nights and empty stomachs. The disparity felt absurdly unfair, violently ripping apart his inner world. As the yacht moved into open waters and began the long journey toward the Strait of Hormuz, that critical choke point connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea, the drama escalated. Vinny received urgent reports from his East Coast contacts. Rival factions, including the Harlan crew, had grown bolder in his absence, making bold moves on dock territories. One tense radio exchange crackled through the bridge as a contact warned of potential interference in international waters from competing interests. Vinny handled the communication with calm authority, but each confrontation heightened the suspense. The yacht's luxurious interior, with its panoramic windows offering views of endless sea, felt suddenly fragile against the unseen threats of his world. Sarah stood at one of the large windows watching the horizon. A wave of horror and anxiety surged through her as she thought of the vast ocean surrounding them. She felt dizziness and loss of balance, clutching a nearby railing for support. Her voice came out timid and polite when she approached Vinny later. "Sir, the children are frightened by the water. Is there danger ahead?" The question revealed her guarded psychology and the violent inner tearing. Part of her remained fearful and confused, wondering if this voyage exposed them to the same unreasonable injustices that had defined their past. The shelters that closed early, the food pantries that ran out the cold nights when no one cared. Yet the attachment to Vinny's protection burned stronger, creating extreme psychological shock. She, who had once been powerless and desperate, now sailed in unimaginable luxury while still carrying the emotional scars of humiliation and torment. Tears threatened in quiet moments of condensed stillness as she recalled Lily crying from hunger on a park bench while passers-by looked away. Tommy's distrust added fuel to the rising tension. He pulled Lily aside in one of the elegant cabins, his voice bold with street wisdom. "See, we're going far away on his boat. What if he leaves us somewhere? Men like him don't keep promises to kids like us." Lily defended Vinny with childlike faith, but the exchange created small, escalating conflicts that mirrored the larger uncertainties. Vinny overheard fragments and felt the remorse deepen into violent conflict. The father-child bond he felt for Lily demanded he shield her from every shadow of his dangerous life. Yet here they were, sailing into international waters because of his obligations. The inner torment grew fiercer with every nautical mile. He imagined all the absurdly unfair events Sarah and the children had endured, denied assistance due to paperwork errors, chased from public spaces, left shivering while others enjoyed warmth and security. Each memory evoked profound sympathy and left his heart numb with guilt. Night fell as the yacht approached more treacherous shipping lanes leading toward the Strait of Hormuz. The vessel's advanced systems ensured smooth sailing with soft lighting and quiet engines, creating an atmosphere of serene luxury. Yet beneath the calm suspense built. Another unexpected radio contact brought news of rival movements, a bold challenge from a competing faction attempting to disrupt Vinny's business interests through indirect pressure. Vinny responded firmly from the bridge, his authority preventing escalation. But the incident left him pacing in the salon afterward. The wealth surrounding him, the custom joinery, the comfortable sofas, the panoramic views only amplified the contrast with the children's past. While he had dined in elegance and slept in comfort, they had known thin, malnourished bodies and sleep interrupted by cold winds. In a quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness on the deck under the stars, Vinny found Sarah watching the dark sea. She turned to him, her voice soft and polite, yet laced with deep feeling. "You have given us more than we ever dreamed, sir. But I am afraid for the children. They have already suffered so much unfairness." Her words touched the core of his upheaval. The passionate fatherly love and consuming remorse collided violently inside him, leaving him in profound inner conflict. He wanted to confess everything, that Lily was his daughter, that he had failed her, but the timing felt fragile amid the voyage's dangers and Tommy's lingering warnings. Sarah felt her own emotions tear increasingly intense. From suspicion, overwhelming trust and attachment had taken root, passionate and burning. Yet anxiety and disorientation still came in waves, creating numbness and pain. As she grappled with the mindset of someone lifted suddenly from extreme poverty into the care of a powerful man, the yacht's luxury highlighted every humiliating memory of their past. evoking quiet tears for the many absurd injustices they had faced. As the vessel continued its fateful course toward the narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz, the emotional rhythm deepened. Conflicts with opposing factions loomed in the background, adding suspense without resolution. For Vinny, the inner tearing reached new heights of violent remorse and protective love. For Sarah, the journey from guarded fear toward deeper attachment continued, confusing and numbing, yet filled with fragile hope. Lily and Tommy's innocent presence anchored the group, their loyalty and tension weaving through every moment. The sea stretched endlessly ahead, carrying them toward unknown storms both on the water and within their hearts. The father-child bond, though still partly unspoken, grew stronger in the face of danger, setting the stage for trials that would test every emotion they carried. The luxury yacht cut through the dark waters of the Persian Gulf under a clear October night sky in 2025, its powerful engines humming with quiet precision as it approached the narrow passage of the Strait of Hormuz. The vessel, with its sleek lines and expansive decks, represented the height of Vinny's wealth and influence. A floating sanctuary of handcrafted mahogany paneling, Italian marble accents, plush white and gray sofas, state-of-the-art entertainment systems discreetly hidden behind elegant cabinetry and large panoramic windows that offered breathtaking views of the sea. Advanced insulation kept the interiors whisper quiet, while soft lighting and climate control created an atmosphere of serene comfort far removed from any hardship. Yet inside Vincent Callahan, a violent storm of emotions raged with ever-increasing intensity. Vinny stood on the bridge for a time, his tall, fair-skinned frame tense beneath his tailored shirt. The powerful Mafia boss commanded an empire of waterfront properties, shipping interests, and discreet international dealings worth tens of millions of dollars. But his steel-blue eyes betrayed the deep inner torment that consumed him. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, intense force from the very first moment he had recognized her on that rain-slicked Boston street. Now, with the children aboard this fateful voyage, the gnawing remorse tore at his heart more violently than ever. He had brought them into potential danger because of his obligations, and the guilt left him numb in quiet moments on the deck. How could he, a man of such power, have failed his own daughter so completely? The contrast between the yacht's luxurious finishes and the children's fragile, thin bodies still recovering from years of malnutrition amplified the absurd unfairness of their past. While he enjoyed custom joinery and plush surroundings, Lily and Tommy had known only cold, wind-filled nights and empty stomachs. The remorse was consuming violently, ripping apart his inner world. Sarah Thompson moved through the main salon with cautious steps, her painfully slender frame still marked by the toll of extreme poverty. She had endured countless humiliating nights, huddled with Lily in doorways or under bridges, her body weakened by hunger and sleep deprivation as October winds cut through their thin clothes. Absurdly unjust situations had defined her life shelters, turning them away over minor paperwork errors, food pantries running out just as their turn came, landlords changing locks without notice, while they begged for one more day. Those memories left her feeling desperate and powerless even now. At times, confusion and fear washed over her in waves. She spoke in a soft, timid, polite voice when she found Vinny later. "Mr. Callahan, the children are resting, but the sea feels so vast. Are we truly safe out here?" Her words carried guarded curiosity mixed with anxiety appropriate for someone addressing a powerful older man. The disparity between their past misery and the yacht's opulence created deep disorientation for Sarah. Dizziness and numbness sometimes overtook her when she gazed through the panoramic windows at the endless dark sea. Someone once desperately poor did not easily accept such protection without inner conflict tearing violently at the heart. Yet an overwhelming trust and attachment burned inside her, passionate and intense, creating quiet moments of condensed emotional stillness, where she simply watched Lily sleep in one of the comfortable cabins. The attachment grew stronger with every kind gesture from Vinny, pushing back against lingering fear. Lily and Tommy had settled in a spacious guest cabin with soft bedding and gentle lighting. Tommy remained wary, whispering warnings to Lily when they were alone. "This boat is too nice. He's taking us far away for a reason. Don't get too close." Lily defended Vinny softly, her innocent faith, creating small tensions that echoed the larger uncertainties of the voyage. Their presence added layers of emotional depth, highlighting the children's resilience amid the adults' inner storms. As the night deepened and the yacht neared the Strait of Hormuz, that critical narrow waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, Vinny retired to his private cabin for a brief rest. The room featured bespoke furniture, premium fabrics, and large windows offering views of the stars. Exhaustion from the voyage and his relentless inner conflict pulled him into a deep sleep almost immediately. In that sleep, a hyper-realistic vision unfolded with startling clarity. Vinny found himself standing on the yacht's deck amid chaos. Massive waves rose like mountains, crashing against the hull with thunderous force. The vessel tilted wildly, and the children's terrified cries cut through the howling wind. He shouted orders, but the storm drowned his voice. Then in the center of the raging sea, a calming presence appeared, a figure of light and peace that seemed to still the chaos with a single word of reassurance. The presence called him by a childhood nickname only his late mother had used, urging him to hold position and wait. "Vinny boy, be patient. Do not enter the strait yet. Trust." The vision felt more real than waking life, filling him with an overwhelming sense of warning and grace. Vinny woke with a start, his heart pounding violently. Sweat soaked his shirt despite the cabin's perfect climate control. The inner tearing escalated to new heights of intensity. The vision had been so vivid, the children's screams, the destructive waves, the calming voice calling him by name. Was it exhaustion or something deeper? The remorse and fatherly love collided in a consuming storm inside him. He had already failed Lily once by abandoning her to poverty. Now this warning, whether real or imagined, demanded he protect her at all costs. The guilt tore at him fiercely, leaving him numb and disoriented for long moments in the quiet cabin. His wealth and power suddenly felt fragile against unseen forces. He dressed quickly and moved to the bridge where the crew monitored instruments showing calm conditions. Sarah was there with the children, unable to sleep. She turned to him, her voice soft and timid. "Mr. Callahan, is everything all right? You look troubled." Her eyes revealed a mix of fear, heightened curiosity, and deepening attachment. The yacht's luxurious salon, with its plush seating and panoramic views, only highlighted the extreme contrast with their past. Sarah felt a wave of dizziness and loss of balance as she considered how far they had come from those humiliating cold nights. The mindset of sudden protection by a powerful man created extreme psychological shock, violently tearing at her inner world with confusion and burning trust. Vinny looked at Lily and Tommy, their small faces, watching him with innocent concern. The fatherly love surged, passionately demanding action. "All stop," he ordered the crew firmly. "Hold our position here before entering the strait." The first officer hesitated, confusion evident. "Sir, the weather is clear. No warnings on instruments." Vinny's authority held, but tension rose on the bridge. The first shocking twist unfolded in that moment of decision. As the crew prepared to comply, one of Vinny's own men, a trusted lieutenant, who had been growing resentful of Vinny's recent protective focus on the strays, moved with sudden intent. In a bold, unexpected act of betrayal, driven by rival faction influence, the man lunged toward Vinny with a concealed object meant to incapacitate him and seize control during the voyage. The drama escalated rapidly, but without excessive violence. Shouts rang out as the man was restrained by loyal crew, but in the chaos, Lily, acting with pure instinctive courage, threw herself forward to shield Vinny from the sudden movement. The little girl collided with the man's arm, taking a hard blow that sent her tumbling against a console. Pain flashed across her small frame as she cried out. Vinny caught Lily instantly, his powerful arms wrapping around her protectively. The sight of his daughter injured because of his world shattered him. Horror and anxiety flooded Sarah as she rushed forward, her voice breaking in a soft, desperate plea. "Lily, oh no, baby." She felt numbness and deep disorientation, dizziness, making the luxurious salon tilt wildly. The inner tearing became violent. The child she had protected through so many pitiful nights of cold wind now lay hurt in the arms of the man who had rescued them. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she recalled every unjust hardship. The feverish nights with no medicine, the evictions that left them powerless, the humiliating stares from those who looked away. In that condensed moment of emotional stillness, amid the chaos Vinny held, Lily close his heart, ripping apart with consuming remorse and overwhelming fatherly love. Blood from a small cut on her arm stained his shirt, a stark reminder of his failures. The vision's warning, the betrayal, and Lily's sacrificial act collided in extreme psychological shock. He who had built such wealth had brought danger upon the very child he loved so passionately. The guilt was violent and deep, leaving him numb as he whispered apologies. "I'm here. I've got you, sweetheart." Tommy watched wide-eyed, his distrust momentarily shattered by the scene. The crew secured the betrayer, who muttered about rival pressures, heightening the suspense of unseen threats from opposing factions. Another tense radio exchange followed as Vinny's contacts warned of bolder moves by the Harlan crew back home, adding layers of drama without resolution. Sarah knelt beside Vinny and Lily, her thin hands trembling as she helped tend the minor injury with supplies from the yacht's well-stocked medical kit. Her voice remained soft and polite through tears. "Thank you for protecting her, but she is only a child." The attachment burned stronger, passionate, and intense, even as fear and confusion tore at her. The mindset of someone lifted from extreme poverty into this world of luxury and sudden danger created numbing emotional upheaval. She felt pain in her chest, recalling all the absurdly unfair events that had befallen them, evoking profound sympathy and quiet sobs in the stillness. Vinny's inner conflict reached its most violent peak. The remorse consumed him as he rocked Lily gently. His love for the child demanded he shield her from every shadow of his life, yet here the dangers had followed. The yacht held position in the calm waters just before the Strait of Hormuz, the luxury interiors now feeling like a fragile cocoon against greater storms. In the quiet aftermath, as the crew restored order and the children were comforted, the emotional rhythm deepened profoundly. The father-child bond had been tested in blood and courage. For Vinny, the tearing was fiercer than ever, gnawing guilt mixing with fierce resolve. For Sarah, trust and attachment surged, overwhelmingly passionate from the first moment, yet violently conflicted by the shock. Lily's small sacrifice had become the turning point, her innocent act healing something deep within the powerful man while exposing the raw vulnerability beneath his wealth. The yacht remained stationary under the stars, the Strait of Hormuz waiting ahead like an unseen threshold. The inner worlds of each character had been torn open wider, setting the stage for miracles and confrontations yet to come in the heart of the storm. The luxury yacht held its position in the calm waters just outside the Strait of Hormuz, under the vast October night sky of 2025. The vessel remained a floating testament to Vincent Callahan's immense wealth and power, its sleek decks, panoramic windows, offering endless views of the sea, handcrafted mahogany interiors, Italian marble surfaces, plush white and gray, seating and advanced climate-controlled cabins, creating an estade persane atmosphere of serene opulence. Soft lighting bathed the main salon in a gentle glow, while the quiet hum of the engines had fallen silent in obedience to Vinny's unexpected order. Yet the air inside the yacht crackled with unspoken tension, the luxurious surroundings only sharpening the emotional storms raging within each soul aboard. Vincent Callahan stood at the large forward windows, his tall, fair-skinned frame rigid, with barely contained turmoil. The powerful Mafia boss commanded empires of waterfront properties, shipping interests, and discreet international dealings worth tens of millions of dollars. His steel-blue eyes reflected the violent inner conflict tearing at him with ever greater intensity. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, consuming force from the first moment he had laid eyes on her in that rain-soaked Boston doorway. Now, after the shocking betrayal and Lily's courageous act that had left her with a small but painful injury, the gnawing remorse had become almost unbearable. He held the 8-year-old girl gently in his arms, her small body still trembling slightly from the ordeal. The sight of his own daughter's blood on his shirt filled him with extreme psychological shock. How could the dangers of his world have reached her so directly? The guilt ripped through him violently, leaving him numb in the condensed moments of stillness as the yacht rocked softly on the calm sea. He had failed her once by abandoning her to poverty. He could not fail her again. Sarah Thompson knelt beside them, her painfully thin and malnourished frame trembling with horror and anxiety. At 32, she still carried the deep marks of absolute extremity, hollow cheeks, dark circles from years of sleep deprivation, and a body weakened by countless cold, wind-filled nights, huddled with Lily in alleyways or under bridges. The poverty had been deeply pitiful and humiliating. She remembered with fresh torment the absurdly unfair events that had stripped her of dignity, being denied shelter because of a single misspelled name on paperwork, watching food pantries close their doors just as their turn arrived, and standing helpless in the rain, while landlords changed locks, without mercy. Those memories left her feeling desperate and powerless, even in this moment of safety. Her voice came out soft, timid, and polite as she reached for her daughter. "Mr. Callahan, let me help her. She is only a little girl." The words carried the psychology of someone who had known only hardship when speaking to someone older and more powerful. Yet beneath the politeness surged overwhelming trust and attachment, passionate and burning intensely from the first moment Vinny had draped his coat around them on that Boston street. The luxury of the yacht with its plush fabrics and advanced comforts only highlighted the stark disparity. Sarah felt waves of dizziness and deep disorientation wash over her, a numbing confusion that made the elegant salon seem to tilt. Pain throbbed in her chest as she recalled every humiliating night when Lily had cried from hunger while strangers looked away. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now suddenly protected by a wealthy, powerful man, created violent emotional upheaval, tearing her inner world apart with conflicting forces of fear and gratitude. Lily looked up at Vinny with wide, innocent eyes, her small voice soft despite the pain in her arm. "It is okay, Mr. Vinny. I did not want the bad man to hurt you." The simple words struck Vinny like a physical blow. In that quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness, his fatherly love surged even more passionately, mixing with remorse. So consuming it left him breathless. He gently bandaged her minor wound with supplies from the yacht's well-equipped medical kit, his powerful hands moving with surprising tenderness. The contrast was heartbreaking, his wealth displayed in every detail of the vessel, versus the children's thin, recovering bodies that still bore the scars of malnutrition and cold nights. Tommy stood nearby, his 9-year-old face pale with shock. The loyal best friend's usual distrust had cracked in the face of Lily's bravery and Vinny's protective response. He watched in silence, the rising tension from his earlier warnings, now giving way to confused wonder. The drama of the betrayal had escalated the emotional layers among them all, creating numbing inner conflict for the boy who had known only street survival. Suddenly, the instruments on the bridge came alive with urgent alerts. The first officer's voice carried clear disbelief. "Captain, severe weather warning just came through. An unexpected storm system is developing rapidly inside the Strait of Hormuz. Massive waves expected over 10 meters. All vessels are advised to delay passage immediately." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Only minutes earlier, every reading had shown perfect calm. Had they continued forward as originally planned, the yacht would have been caught in the heart of the chaos, its luxurious structure tested against forces of nature no vessel could easily withstand. Vinny gripped the railing, his heart pounding with awe and overwhelming relief. The vision had been real. The calming presence had warned him truly. In that profound moment, the inner tearing reached its most violent peak yet. The remorse for his past failures collided with a deep, almost spiritual gratitude. He had stopped the yacht on faith in a dreamlike warning, and now the miracle had saved them all, especially the children he loved so fiercely. The fatherly bond with Lily felt stronger than ever, passionate and protective, healing something deep inside his tormented soul, even as guilt continued to claw at him. Sarah rose slowly, her legs unsteady from shock and lingering dizziness. She looked out the panoramic windows at the still calm waters around them, then toward the dark horizon where the strait waited. Horror and anxiety had gripped her during the betrayal, but now, a new wave of confusion and heightened curiosity filled her. "How did you know?" she asked in her soft, timid voice, polite yet trembling with emotion. There was no sign. Nothing. The question revealed her inner turmoil, the violent tearing between lingering fear and an overwhelming surge of trust. Someone lifted suddenly from extreme poverty into this world of power, and unexpected miracles experienced profound psychological shock. Tears slipped down her cheeks in a quiet moment of condensed emotional stillness as she held Lily close. The luxury surrounding them, the soft lighting, the comfortable sofas, the advanced systems that had kept them safe, stood in brutal contrast to the many cold, humiliating nights they had endured. She remembered with fresh pain the absurdly unfair events being turned away from aid, while Lily shivered with fever or sleeping on concrete, while others passed by in warm cars. Those memories evoked deep sympathy, and quiet sobs her attachment to Vinny burning more intensely than ever. The storm struck the strait with ferocious power. Even from their safe position outside its reach, they could see the distant chaos through binoculars and radar, towering waves crashing, violently winds howling with unnatural force. The yacht would have been in the center of that destruction had Vinny not obeyed the warning. Crew members moved with disciplined efficiency, securing everything as the outer edges of the weather system sent occasional swells rocking the vessel gently. Vinny personally ensured the children were safely seated in the most protected area of the salon, his powerful presence a steady anchor amid the growing suspense. Another tense radio exchange crackled through as contacts back in Boston reported bold new moves by the Harlan faction rival groups, attempting to exploit Vinny's absence, with unexpected pressure on dock territories. The confrontation remained verbal and controlled through secure channels, but the news heightened the drama, reminding everyone of the dangers that followed Vinny's world, even across oceans. Vinny handled the communication with calm authority, yet inside the remorse grew fiercer. Every conflict with opposing factions underscored the life that had once caused him to abandon his daughter to such pitiful hardship. In the midst of the storm's distant roar, a profound quiet settled over the main salon. Lily leaned against Vinny's side, her small hand resting on his arm. "You kept us safe," she whispered. Tommy sat close, his earlier warnings silenced by the miracle unfolding around them. Sarah watched the scene, her emotions a turbulent sea of shock, confusion, and deepening attachment. The inner tearing was violent and numbing. Part of her still feared the powerful man, yet another part felt an overwhelming, passionate trust that brought fresh tears. The disparity between their past misery and this moment of safety felt almost too much to bear. She had once been powerless and desperate, enduring humiliating nights of cold wind while her child suffered. Now she sat in unimaginable luxury, protected by a man whose kindness seemed to defy the harsh world she had known. Vinny held Lily gently, his heart torn open wider than ever. The miracle storm had confirmed the vision, saving the entire crew and the children he cherished. Yet the remorse remained, consuming a deep emotional upheaval centered on his love for the child and the years he had lost. In the condensed emotional stillness of the salon, as the storm raged safely distant, he felt the father-child bond strengthen profoundly. The healing had begun not just for Lily's small injury, but for the wounds in his own soul. The yacht remained steady in its held position, the crew safe, and the luxury interiors untouched by the chaos beyond. For Sarah, the journey from guarded suspicion toward burning attachment continued, passionate and intense, even as anxiety and disorientation lingered in waves. For Vinny, the inner conflict raged on, gnawing guilt, mixing with fierce gratitude and protective love. The miracle had saved them physically, but the emotional storms within each heart had only grown deeper, preparing them for the greater revelations and healings yet to come. As the hours passed and the storm gradually began to subside in the strait, a fragile peace settled over the yacht. The miracle had unfolded, the crew had survived, and the fatherly bond between Vinny and Lily had been forged stronger in the heart of danger. Yet the emotional rhythm continued its intense course, tearing at each soul with increasing depth and moving humanity. The luxury yacht remained steady in the calmer waters just beyond the Strait of Hormuz, as the fierce storm gradually lost its fury in the distance during the late hours of that October night in 2025. The vessel's elegant interiors glowed softly under recessed lighting. Spacious salons with plush white and gray sofas, handcrafted mahogany paneling, Italian marble surfaces, and large panoramic windows that now framed a sky slowly clearing of clouds. Advanced systems kept the air perfectly comfortable, creating an atmosphere of serene luxury that felt almost dreamlike after the tension of the miracle storm and the shocking betrayal that had preceded it. Yet inside each person aboard, emotions continued to churn with increasing violence, tearing at hearts already raw from the night's events. Vincent Callahan sat in the main salon, his tall, fair-skinned frame hunched slightly forward as he kept one protective arm around Lily. The powerful Mafia boss who commanded waterfront empires, shipping interests, and discreet international dealings worth tens of millions of dollars felt his inner world fracturing under the weight of deepening remorse. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, consuming intensity from the very first moment he had recognized her. Now, after her small but brave act of shielding him during the betrayal, that love mixed with guilt so violent, it left him numb in long stretches of condensed emotional stillness. He gently adjusted the bandage on her arm, his powerful hands trembling with the memory of her pain. How many times had he sat in luxury while his own daughter endured cold, wind-filled nights and hunger? The disparity tore at him fiercely, the yacht's opulent comforts against her thin, malnourished body still recovering from years of hardship. The remorse was consuming a deep emotional upheaval that made his chest ache with every breath. Sarah Thompson sat close by, her painfully slender frame still showing the marks of absolute poverty. She had known countless humiliating nights, huddled with Lily in doorways, or under bridges, her body weakened by malnutrition and sleep deprivation, as October gusts stole what little warmth they possessed. Absurdly unfair events had defined her existence, being denied emergency aid because of bureaucratic paperwork errors, watching shelters close their doors while Lily shivered with fever, or standing powerless on sidewalks as landlords changed locks without mercy. Those memories flooded back with fresh torment, leaving her feeling desperate and powerless even in this moment of safety. At times, confusion and fear washed over her in waves. Her voice remained soft, timid, and polite when she spoke to Vinny. "Mr. Callahan, thank you for tending to her so carefully. She has never known such gentleness." The words carried her guarded psychology, appropriate for addressing someone older and far more powerful. Yet beneath the politeness surged an overwhelming trust and attachment, passionate and burning intensely. The luxury surrounding them only sharpened the contrast with their past misery. Sarah felt waves of dizziness and deep disorientation, a numbing confusion that made the elegant salon seem unsteady. Pain throbbed quietly in her chest as she recalled every pitiful night when she could offer Lily nothing but whispered lullabies against the cold. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now suddenly protected and cared for by a wealthy, powerful man, created extreme psychological shock, violently tearing her inner world apart with conflicting forces of lingering anxiety and deepening gratitude. Tommy, the 9-year-old loyal best friend, stood a short distance away, his scrappy frame tense as he watched the scene unfold. The boy had spent many cold nights on the streets, with Lily sharing scraps of food and standing guard against dangers. His usual bold distrust of Vinny had been shaken by the miracle storm and Lily's courageous act, but old fears still lingered. The drama of the night had escalated the emotional layers, creating rising tension that now reached a critical turning point. In the quiet aftermath, as the crew monitored the subsiding storm from the bridge, another tense radio exchange crackled through. Contacts back in Boston reported a bold new challenge from the Harlan faction rival groups, making unexpected moves on dock territories, testing Vinny's influence even from across the ocean. The confrontation remained controlled through secure channels with firm but measured responses from Vinny's team. Yet the news added suspense and reminded everyone of the dangers that shadowed his world. Vinny handled the communication with calm authority, but inside the remorse grew fiercer. Every conflict with opposing factions underscored the life that had once caused him to abandon his daughter to such humiliating hardship. Lily shifted slightly in Vinny's arms, her small voice breaking the stillness. "Tommy, come sit with us." Mr. Vinny kept the storm away. Tommy hesitated, his eyes narrowing with lingering suspicion. He stopped the boat because of a dream that does not make sense. Powerful men always have reasons. What if this is all part of something bad? The boy's words carried the weight of street wisdom earned through years of unfair treatment and broken promises. He stepped closer but remained guarded, his thin frame still bearing the marks of malnutrition and sleep-deprived nights on concrete. Sarah watched the exchange with anxious eyes. She felt a fresh wave of horror and confusion, her voice soft and timid as she addressed Vinny. "Tommy has protected Lily many times when we had nothing. Please understand his fear." The request revealed her inner turmoil, the violent tearing between fear of imposing and the burning attachment that made her trust Vinny more with every passing hour. The luxury of the yacht, with its plush seating and advanced comforts, only highlighted the extreme disparity. She remembered with fresh pain the absurdly unjust situations being turned away from food assistance, while Lily cried from hunger or enduring cold winds, while others passed in warm vehicles. Those memories evoked deep sympathy and quiet tears that slipped down her cheeks in a condensed moment of emotional stillness. Vinny looked directly at Tommy, his steel blue eyes filled with genuine understanding rather than anger. "You are right to question me, son. The streets teach hard lessons, and I know I have not always been the kind of man children should trust. But tonight, something greater than me warned us. I stopped because I could not risk Lily. Or you." His voice carried quiet authority tempered with humility. In that profound moment, the fatherly love for Lily extended naturally toward Tommy, creating a bridge across the boy's distrust. The turning point came slowly but powerfully as the storm continued to fade in the distance. Tommy stepped closer, his eyes fixed on Lily's bandaged arm, and then on Vinny's gentle way of holding her. The boy's face softened as memories flooded him. The many nights he and Lily had huddled together for warmth, the unfair times when adults had ignored their pleas, the cold winds that had left them shivering and powerless. He had warned Lily repeatedly about powerful men, yet here Vinny had risked his own position to stop the yacht protected them during the betrayal, and now tended to Lily with real care. Tommy's voice cracked slightly as he finally spoke. You really stopped everything because you cared about her. And you did not get mad when I said those things. My own dad left us when things got hard. He never protected us like this." Tears welled in the boy's eyes, the emotional turning point breaking through years of built-up walls. He moved closer and, in a small but significant gesture, placed his hand on Lily's shoulder while looking at Vinny. Maybe you are not like the others." In that quiet, condensed moment of emotional stillness, the salon seemed to hold its breath. Vinny felt his heartlet open wider, the remorse and fatherly love colliding in violent inner conflict. The guilt over his secret past with Lily tore at him fiercely, yet witnessing Tommy's shift brought a profound sense of responsibility and healing. He had built such wealth and power, yet children like Tommy and Lily had suffered absurdly unfair hardships while he lived in luxury. The disparity was heartbreaking, evoking deep moving emotion as he gently reached out and rested a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "You are both safe with me now, I promise." Sarah watched the scene with overwhelming attachment surging through her. The passionate trust she felt for Vinny burned even brighter, passionate and intense from the first moment. Yet the inner tearing remained violent confusion and lingering anxiety, mixing with gratitude that left her numb and disoriented. She felt dizziness wash over her as she considered how far they had come from those pitiful, humiliating nights of cold wind and hunger. Someone once desperately poor now sat in unimaginable luxury, witnessing a powerful man show genuine kindness to her daughter and her daughter's best friend. Tears flowed freely in the stillness, sympathy for their shared past mixing with hope for the future. Lily smiled softly between them, her innocent presence acting as the gentle bridge. "See, Tommy, he is like a real dad. The simple words deepened the emotional rhythm, creating another layer of profound stillness amid the night's drama. As the yacht remained safely positioned and the storm fully subsided in the strait, the crew reported clear passage ahead. Another brief but tense radio exchange came through regarding rival movements back home, adding subtle suspense without escalation. Vinny responded with measured authority, but his focus remained on the children. The second child's turning point had arrived: Tommy's distrust, giving way to tentative acceptance and emotional vulnerability. For Vinny, the inner conflict grew fiercer than ever, remorse and protective love tearing at his heart with consuming force. For Sarah, the journey from guarded suspicion toward overwhelming attachment continued passionately, even as anxiety and disorientation lingered in waves. The father-child bond, now quietly extending to include Tommy, had deepened profoundly in the heart of the miracle night. The luxury yacht sat peacefully on the calmed sea, its opulent interiors a stark contrast to the poverty the children had known. In the quiet hours that followed, the emotional healing began to take root, moving and genuine, as the group faced the uncertain path ahead with hearts more open than before. The inner worlds had been torn open wider, yet in that tearing space had been created for compassion, responsibility, and the fragile beginnings of family. The luxury yacht resumed its cautious passage through the now cleared Strait of Hormuz, as the first hints of dawn touched the horizon in October of 2025. The vessel moved with smooth grace, its advanced systems ensuring stability, while the elegant interiors, spacious salons with plush white and gray sofas, handcrafted mahogany paneling, Italian marble surfaces, and large panoramic windows bathed in soft morning light. The opulent surroundings spoke of Vincent Callahan's immense wealth and power, a floating world of comfort far removed from the harsh realities most people ever knew. Yet inside the main salon, the emotional atmosphere remained heavy with the aftershocks of the miracle storm and the night's revelations, each heart continuing to tear with increasing intensity. Vincent Callahan sat with Lily nestled against his side, his tall, fair-skinned frame a steady presence amid the gentle motion of the sea. The powerful Mafia boss commanded empires of waterfront properties, shipping interests, and discreet international dealings worth tens of millions of dollars. His steel blue eyes, however, revealed a soul in profound turmoil. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, all-consuming force from the very first moment he had recognized her. After her brave act during the betrayal, and the miracle that had saved them all, that love now intertwined with remorse so violent, it left him numb in quiet stretches of condensed emotional stillness. He gently checked the bandage on her small arm, his powerful hands moving with careful tenderness. The sight of her thin, recovering body against the yacht's luxurious finishes tore at him fiercely. While he enjoyed custom craftsmanship and effortless comfort, Lily had once known only cold, wind-filled nights, huddled in doorways, her malnourished frame weakened by hunger and sleep deprivation. The disparity was heartbreaking, amplifying the gnawing guilt that clawed deeper into his heart with every passing hour. Sarah Thompson watched them from a nearby sofa, her painfully slender frame still bearing the visible scars of absolute poverty. She had endured countless humiliating nights with Lily sleeping on concrete or in abandoned spaces while October winds cut through their thin clothes. The poverty had been deeply pitiful, being turned away from shelters over minor paperwork mistakes, watching food pantries empty just as their turn came, or standing powerless as landlords changed locks without notice, leaving them with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Those absurdly unfair events replayed in her mind, creating fresh waves of inner torment that left her feeling desperate and powerless even now. At moments, confusion and fear still washed over her. Her voice remained soft, timid, and polite when she spoke. "Mr. Callahan, you are so gentle with her. She has never had anyone care for her wounds like this." The words carried her guarded psychology, shaped by years of addressing those with more power. Yet an overwhelming trust and attachment burned inside. Sarah, passionate and intense from the first moment Vinny had offered them protection. The yacht's luxury only sharpened the contrast with their past misery. She felt sudden dizziness and deep disorientation, a numbing confusion that made the elegant surroundings seem unsteady. Pain throbbed quietly in her chest as she remembered every cold night when she could offer Lily nothing but whispered promises of better days. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now suddenly surrounded by wealth and kindness, created extreme psychological shock, violently tearing her inner world apart with conflicting emotions of lingering anxiety and burning gratitude. Lily's small injury had begun to heal under proper care, but the real healing unfolding on the yacht was deeper and more profound. Throughout the day, the little girl's innocent kindness repeatedly reached into Vinny's wounded heart. She drew simple pictures on paper provided by the crew, one showing a big boat with 4 figures standing together under a bright sun. She offered it to Vinny with a shy smile. "This is us after the storm. You made the waves go away." The gesture struck Vinny with overwhelming force. In a quiet moment of condensed emotional stillness, he accepted the drawing, his throat tightening with emotion. The fatherly love surged passionately, yet the remorse grew more violent. He imagined all the birthdays he had missed, all the nights Lily and Tommy had suffered while he lived in luxury. The guilt was consuming a deep emotional upheaval that left him numb as he traced the childish lines with his finger. Tommy, whose turning point had begun the night before, now watched with softening eyes. The boy's street-honed wariness had cracked, further replaced by tentative curiosity and emerging trust. He sat close to Lily, occasionally adding his own small drawings, a scrappy figure standing guard beside the others. "I used to tell Lily not to trust big men," he admitted quietly to Vinny during one peaceful moment. "But you stayed with us in the storm. You did not send us away." His words carried the weight of a child who had known too many unreasonable injustices, being chased from parks, denied school meals due to paperwork issues, or left shivering when shelters closed early. Vinny listened with genuine attentiveness, his inner conflict intensifying. The responsibility he felt toward both children now extended like a quiet vow, deepening the fatherly bond. Sarah observed these interactions with heightened curiosity mixed with lingering fear. She felt waves of numbness and loss of balance when she considered how dramatically their lives had changed. From the humiliating poverty where she had once begged strangers for help, she now sat in unimaginable comfort, watching a powerful man allow two vulnerable children to heal his own emotional wounds through their simple kindness. The attachment burned stronger, passionate, and intense. Yet the inner tearing remained violent, confusion and anxiety still tugging at her heart even as trust grew. Tears came unbidden in moments of stillness as she recalled the many cold nights when Lily had asked why they could not have a real home like other families. As the yacht continued its journey, another tense confrontation arose through secure communications. Rival factions back in Boston, including the Harlan crew, had grown bolder in Vinny's absence, making unexpected moves on key dock territories. A bold radio exchange followed, with Vinny responding firmly, but without escalation, his authority preventing any immediate threat. The news added suspense to the voyage, reminding everyone of the dangers that followed his world. Vinny handled the matter with measured calm, but inside the remorse deepened. Each conflict with opposing factions highlighted the life that had once caused him to abandon his daughter to such pitiful hardship, making the guilt claw more violently at his soul. Throughout the day, Lily's innocent acts continued their healing work. She shared stories her mother had told her during hard times, simple tales of hope that made Vinny pause and reflect. She even offered him a small, crumpled apple pie recipe card that Sarah had carried through all their hardships, a fragile keepsake from better days. "Mama says sharing makes things better," Lily said softly. Vinny accepted it with trembling hands, the gesture piercing his heart. In that condensed emotional stillness, the powerful man felt his emotional wounds, the deep loneliness of his dangerous life, begin to mend under the child's pure compassion. The remorse remained fierce, but alongside it grew a profound sense of purpose and responsibility. Sarah's own healing unfolded in parallel. She spoke more openly in her soft, polite voice, sharing fragments of their past struggles. "We slept many nights with the wind blowing so hard we could not feel our fingers. Lily would ask if tomorrow would be warmer." Each recollection brought fresh tears, evoking deep sympathy for the utter misery they had endured. Yet sharing with Vinny also brought relief, her attachment growing into something steady and burning. The extreme disparity between their past poverty and the yacht's luxury created ongoing psychological shock, dizziness, and numbness, returning in waves as she grappled with the kindness of a man who could have easily ignored them. Tommy contributed in his own way, his loyalty to Lily, now extending cautiously toward Vinny. He helped comfort Lily during moments when her arm ached, and he even asked Vinny quiet questions about the sea and the boat. These small exchanges created additional layers of emotional depth, highlighting how the innocent kindness of the children was slowly mending the wounds in the powerful man's heart. Both the visible injury Lily had sustained and the deeper, invisible scars Vinny had carried for years. As evening approached and the yacht sailed onward in safer waters, a profound quiet settled over the group. Vinny sat with the children on either side of him, Sarah nearby. In that moment of condensed emotional stillness, the father-child bond felt tangible. The remorse still tore at Vinny with violent intensity, but the healing brought by Lily's and Tommy's kindness offered a path toward redemption. Sarah watched with overwhelming trust, her inner conflict easing into deeper attachment even as occasional anxiety flickered. The children's presence had become a gentle force, their innocent compassion contrasting sharply with the harsh world they had once known. The luxury of the yacht continued to emphasize the stark gap between wealth and poverty. Yet, in this space, something beautiful was emerging. Physical wounds, healing under care, emotional wounds mending through kindness, and a powerful man, rediscovering his capacity for compassion and responsibility. The inner worlds of each character remained in motion, torn and healing in equal measure, as the voyage carried them closer to home and to the greater revelations that still awaited. The healing had begun in earnest deep and genuinely moving forged in the aftermath of storm and sacrifice. The fatherly love, the growing family-like bond, and the quiet transformation of hearts pointed toward a future none of them could have imagined on that cold Boston street where their journey had started. The luxury yacht docked at a secure private pier in Boston Harbor under the gray October skies of 2025. The vessel, with its sleek lines, panoramic windows, plush interiors of white and gray sofas, handcrafted mahogany paneling, and Italian marble accents, gleamed as a symbol of Vincent Callahan's immense wealth and power. Yet as the group stepped onto familiar American soil, the emotional weight of the voyage pressed heavier than ever. The miracle storm, Lily's brave act, and Tommy's turning point had begun healing wounds, both physical and emotional, but the inner tearing in each heart continued to intensify with every passing hour. Vincent Callahan walked with deliberate steps, his tall, fair-skinned frame shielding Lily and Tommy as they moved from the dock toward the waiting vehicles. The powerful Mafia boss commanded waterfront empires, shipping interests, and discreet networks worth tens of millions of dollars. His steel-blue eyes, however, betrayed a soul in violent turmoil. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, all-consuming intensity from the very first moment he had recognized her. After the events at sea, that love had deepened into a fierce, protective responsibility that now extended to Tommy as well. Yet the gnawing remorse tore at him more violently than before. He had brought danger upon the children through his world, and the guilt left him numb in condensed moments of emotional stillness as he helped Lily into the armored SUV. The contrast remained brutal, his luxury vehicles and secure compound against the children's thin, malnourished bodies that still carried the scars of years of hardship. Sarah Thompson followed closely, her painfully slender frame moving with lingering caution. She had known the absolute extremity of poverty, countless cold, wind-filled nights huddled with Lily in doorways or under bridges, her body weakened by malnutrition and sleep deprivation. The humiliation had been profound, being denied shelter over trivial paperwork errors, watching food pantries close, just as their turn arrived, or standing powerless on sidewalks, as landlords changed locks without mercy, leaving them exposed to the elements. Those absurdly unfair events replayed in her mind, creating fresh waves of inner torment that left her feeling desperate and powerless even in safety. At times, confusion and fear still surged. Her voice remained soft, timid, and polite when she spoke to Vinny. "Mr. Callahan, the children are tired from the journey. Will we be safe at the compound?" The question carried her guarded psychology shaped by years of hardship. Yet an overwhelming trust and attachment burned inside, Sarah passionate and intense. The luxury of the convoy, the smooth ride, the heated seats, the quiet security only highlighted the stark disparity with their past misery. She felt sudden dizziness and deep disorientation, a numbing confusion that made the familiar Boston streets seem unsteady. Pain throbbed in her chest as she recalled every humiliating night when she could offer Lily nothing but whispered promises against the cold. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now protected by a wealthy, powerful man, created extreme psychological shock, violently tearing her inner world apart with conflicting forces of lingering anxiety and burning gratitude. As the vehicles approached, the waterfront compound trouble erupted in a bold, unexpected confrontation. Two black sedans from the Harlan faction suddenly blocked the road near the gated entrance, their windows lowering to reveal tense faces. The rivals, emboldened by Vinny's prolonged absence, had chosen this moment to press their challenge over dock territories. Voices rose in sharp but controlled exchanges. "Callahan, you think you can disappear and keep everything? We have business to settle." Vinny stepped out with calm authority, his presence alone shifting the balance. His men formed a protective line without aggression, and after several tense, breathless minutes of firm negotiation, the sedans withdrew. The confrontation remained verbal and measured, but the suspense lingered heavily in the October air. Inside the compound, the group gathered in the main living area. The luxury of the house, fine furnishings, warm lighting, and secure walls, stood in stark contrast to the poverty Sarah and the children had endured. Lily and Tommy sat close together, drawing quietly, their small bodies finally relaxing in safety. Vinny tended to Lily's arm again, his gentle care, a quiet testament to the healing that had begun at sea. Then came the final shocking twist. A trusted lieutenant who had remained behind during the voyage entered the room with urgent news, but his expression quickly turned grave. In a devastating revelation, he confessed under pressure that he had been secretly working with the Harlan faction for months, The betrayal ran deeper than anyone imagined. The rival boss had been threatening Sarah and Lily for years, using their vulnerability on the streets to indirectly control and monitor Vinny. The lieutenant had fed information about Vinny's movements, including the voyage in exchange for promises of power. Even worse, the rival had orchestrated subtle pressures, anonymous calls to shelters, denying them help, manipulated evictions, and orchestrated shortages at food pantries, all to keep Sarah and Lily desperate and powerless, ensuring Vinny remained distracted and vulnerable. The revelation struck like a thunderclap. Vinny froze, his powerful frame rigid with shock. The inner tearing escalated to its most violent peak yet. The remorse consumed him in a consuming fire. He had thought his absence during the voyage had protected them, but his own world had been the source of their suffering all along. The fatherly love for Lily surged with passionate intensity, now mixed with a fierce protective rage that left him numb and disoriented. How many cold nights had they endured because of threats tied to him? The guilt ripped through his heart violently. A deep emotional upheaval centered on his failure to shield his own child. Sarah staggered back, her legs weakening with horror and anxiety. She felt a wave of dizziness and loss of balance, clutching a nearby table for support. Her voice came out in a soft, broken whisper. All those times, the evictions, the closed shelters, the nights we had nothing. It was because of me being connected to you. The truth tore at her with numbing confusion and pain. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now learning that even her misery had been manipulated by powerful forces, created extreme psychological shock. Tears streamed down her face as she recalled every humiliating moment, Lily crying from hunger while strangers looked away, the cold winds that left them shivering and powerless. The inner conflict was violent and tearing her overwhelming attachment to Vinny, battling with fresh fear and disorientation. Tommy's eyes widened in betrayal and anger. They hurt us on purpose. All those unfair things happened because of him. The boy's voice cracked his loyalty to Lily, pushing him forward despite his fear. The drama escalated as the lieutenant revealed the rival boss was approaching the compound with a small group for a final confrontation, believing Vinny weakened by the voyage. The ultimate confrontation unfolded at the compound gates in a tense, bold standoff. The rival boss arrived with several men, their demands loud but carefully measured. Vinny stepped forward with calm authority, his men forming a protective line. Words were exchanged sharply, accusations of territory violations and broken alliances, but no excessive violence erupted. Vinny's powerful presence and strategic responses held the line. In the heightened suspense, Lily and Tommy, drawing on their street knowledge, noticed a suspicious movement and alerted Vinny, helping him anticipate a subtle attempt to breach the perimeter. Their quick thinking turned the tide. Sarah stood nearby, her thin hands trembling as she watched. Her voice remained soft and polite even in terror. "Please, the children." Her attachment to Vinny burned passionately, yet the shock left her numb and in pain. The revelation that her poverty and suffering had been weaponized against Vinny created violent inner tearing, evoking profound sympathy for the many absurdly unfair events that had befallen her and Lily. In the decisive moment, Vinny chose family over power. He publicly renounced the dangerous elements of his empire in front of the rival, offering a path toward legitimate protection work instead. The rival, sensing the shift in momentum and Vinny's unyielding resolve to protect the children, withdrew after tense negotiations. The confrontation ended without bloodshed, but the emotional cost was immense. Back inside the house, Vinny dropped to one knee before Lily and Tommy, his voice thick with emotion. The remorse was fiercer than ever, yet the fatherly love shone through with passionate clarity. Sarah watched, her heart torn between horror at the truth and overwhelming trust in the man who had chosen them. The luxury of the compound only emphasized the long road from their pitiful past, bringing quiet tears in moments of condensed emotional stillness. The final shocking twist had shattered illusions but also cleared the path for true healing. Vinny's inner conflict raged violently, gnawing guilt over the past, mixing with fierce determination for the future. Sarah's attachment deepened passionately, even as confusion and disorientation lingered. The children's innocence had once again guided them through danger, strengthening the emerging family bond. The night settled over the waterfront compound, the luxury and security now feeling like a true sanctuary. The ultimate confrontation had tested them all, tearing hearts open wider, while forging them stronger in compassion, responsibility, and love. The emotional journey, raw and genuinely moving, pointed toward a new beginning none of them could have imagined when their paths first crossed on that cold Boston street. The waterfront compound in South Boston stood bathed in the soft afternoon light of late October in 2025. The large house, with its fine furnishings, warm wooden floors, and secure walls overlooking the harbor, radiated the quiet luxury that Vincent Callahan had built over years of determined effort. Yet on this particular day, the true richness lay not in the polished surfaces or the expansive grounds. but in the fragile, deeply human bonds forming within its walls. The powerful Mafia boss, tall and fair-skinned, moved through the rooms with a heaviness that no amount of wealth could lighten. His steel-blue eyes carried the weight of inner torment that had grown increasingly intense since the voyage. The fatherly love for Lily burned with passionate, all-consuming force from the very first moment he had recognized her on that rain-slicked street. After the miracle storm, the betrayal, and the final confrontation, that love had become a fierce, protective light that now illuminated every corner of his heart. Sarah Thompson sat in the sunlit living area, her painfully thin frame still showing the marks of years of absolute poverty. She had endured countless cold, wind-filled nights, huddled with Lily in doorways or under bridges, deprived of proper food and sleep, her body weakened by malnutrition and constant anxiety. The humiliation had cut deep, being turned away from shelters over minor paperwork mistakes, watching food pantries close just as their turn came, or standing powerless as landlords changed locks without mercy, leaving them exposed to the canter. Élément. Those absurdly unfair events had left her feeling desperate and powerless for so long. Even now, in this place of safety and comfort, waves of confusion and lingering fear sometimes washed over her. Her voice remained soft, timid, and polite when she spoke to Vinny. "Mr. Callahan, the children seem happier here than I ever thought possible." The words carried the psychology of a woman who had known only hardship when addressing someone older and more powerful. Yet an overwhelming surge of trust and attachment filled Sarah, passionate and intense, burning from the very first moment Vinny had offered them protection. The luxury of the compound, the warm lighting, the comfortable furniture, the secure peace stood in stark contrast to the deeply pitiful nights she and Lily had once known. She felt occasional dizziness and deep disorientation, a numbing confusion that made her question how such kindness could exist in a world that had once been so cruel. The mindset of someone once desperately poor, now suddenly loved and protected by a wealthy, powerful man, created extreme psychological shock, violently tearing at her inner world, even as gratitude brought quiet tears. Lily and Tommy played nearby with simple toys Vinny had provided, their laughter a gentle sound that filled the house. The little girl's arm had healed well, but it was her innocent kindness and Tommy's growing trust that continued to reach the deepest wounds in Vinny's heart. In quiet moments of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny would watch them and feel the remorse surge violently. He had built such wealth and power, yet his own daughter and her loyal friend had once suffered cold nights and hunger while he lived in comfort. The disparity remained heartbreaking, evoking profound sympathy for every unjust situation they had endured. One final tense confrontation occurred that afternoon near the compound gates. A small group from the Harlan faction appeared unexpectedly, making one last bold attempt to challenge Vinny's influence. Voices rose in sharp but controlled exchanges on the street outside. Vinny stepped forward with calm authority, his men forming a protective line without aggression. After several minutes of firm, measured words, the rivals withdrew, sensing the unyielding resolve in Vinny's stance. The suspense lingered briefly, but the confrontation ended peacefully, underscoring Vinny's growing choice to prioritize protection over power. In the aftermath, Vinny gathered everyone in the living room. The luxury around them, the soft sofas, the warm light, the secure walls highlighted how far they had come from the streets. He knelt before Lily and Tommy, his powerful frame humbled. Tears glistened in his eyes as he spoke from the depths of his heart. "Lily, you are my daughter. I walked away years ago out of fear, and that mistake cost us all so much. Tommy, you have shown me what true loyalty means. Sarah, your strength and kindness have taught me more than any success ever could." The inner tearing reached its most violent intensity. The gnawing remorse and consuming guilt collided with the passionate, fatherly love that had burned inside him since the beginning. In that profound moment of stillness, he made his choice. "I am leaving the dangerous parts of my old life behind. I want to raise you both as my own children, to give you the home, the safety, and the love you deserve." Wealth and poverty cannot separate real compassion. Love sees no skin color and no bank account. It only sees hearts. Sarah's emotions surged in a passionate wave. She felt shock and deep disorientation, dizziness washing over her as the truth settled. From initial suspicion to this overwhelming attachment, her heart had been torn and healed in equal measure. Her voice came soft and trembling. "You chose us, even after everything." Tears fell freely, evoking sympathy for the long road from her pitiful past to this moment of acceptance. Lily climbed into Vinny's arms, her small voice filled with joy. "You are my daddy now." Tommy joined the embrace, his earlier distrust fully replaced by trust. In that quiet, condensed emotional stillness, the new family held one another. The powerful man had found healing through the innocent kindness of the children. the once destitute woman had discovered that true protection came wrapped in genuine love. From this story, we draw important knowledge about the strength of compassion that can transform even the hardest hearts. We learn a valuable lesson that real family is built through choice and care, not just blood. This education reminds us that kindness can heal old wounds. Another knowledge emerges when we see how courage in small acts changes everything. We gain a meaningful lesson that no one is beyond redemption when love is offered freely. This education shows the power of second chances. Further, knowledge reveals that protecting the vulnerable brings purpose to power. We absorb another lesson about the beauty of acceptance, regardless of background. This education teaches that wealth and poverty cannot separate genuine human connection. One more knowledge highlights how children's innocence can guide adults back to humanity. We receive a touching lesson on the importance of responsibility and forgiveness. This education encourages us to value every act of trust and healing. To everyone watching this video, I wish you good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Thank you for joining this journey. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others so you can enjoy many engaging videos every day. How do you feel about this story? How does it connect to real life for you? Please share your comments below so the creator can listen to the emotions from deep within your hearts. Goodbye for now, and I promise to see you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.